Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Lose Your Mind podcast with me, Alan.
I'm me, Kelly.
How are you today, Kelly?
I am wonderful, thank you. How are you?
I'm really good too. Thank you. I'm looking forward to this discussion. I've been really enjoying this season of podcasts. Or do I say
I
series?
Well, it depends where we are in the world. We can go with both.
We can go with both, can't we?
Yes.
So I'm looking forward to this discussion today, which is going to be about habits. And we have discussed this before in the Lose Your Mind podcast, but that was back in series one, and things have moved on a bit. We've changed a few habits and a few things are slightly different. So we thought it was worth rediscovering and rediscussing. And why do you think that is, Kelly?
Well, I like what you said there to start this off. I too learn a lot from these conversations. I think conversations in life are so powerful. And I think over time, things shift and change, and we learn and understand and rediscover different things. And it was 2022 or 2021, we actually started recording that. It's now 2025.
That's a long time.
It is a long time. So it's good to still be here rediscovering and learning with you. And I know you more so than me, I would say have more in-depth knowledge about habits and why they're important, maybe why they can hold us back. I mean, there's all different sides to that story, I would say, with a habit, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think so. I wouldn't say I know a lot more than you about it. I've read, quite a lot about it. And I think that, it's central to mindfulness and habits really form, don't they, because of our the laziness of the brain, but also the efficiency of the brain in that it just wants to follow existing paths. So just like a road, that goes round a city, it's easier to just keep going around that road to get to where you want to go rather than create a new route. So you just get into this habit, if you like. And that's the path you take. And it's the same thing with our neural networks, isn't it? So and how that translates to us in reality is that if a certain situation happens and we get a certain trigger, then we follow an established pathway, and that's how it becomes a habit. And we do it without thinking about it. It's an unconscious thing. So, for example, and when I teach this, I always like to use this example as is quite common, is that we wake up in the morning. This obviously everybody's got their own routine, but wake up in the morning and then the first thing that a lot of people do is just go and have a cup of coffee and they don't do anything else without having a cup of coffee. And why do they do that? And they do that because they need to feel awake and alert before they can get on with it. That's the reward they get for the habit. And after a while, that almost becomes unconscious to you. You don't even think about that. It just becomes expected of yourself to do that. That's how habits form. It's because we want a reward. The brain really focuses on things that give us rewards. Does that
Hmm.
make sense?
It does make sense. It does. The thing that interests me about this and the way you're explaining it is the reward system, because we can have positive and negative habits, can't we? And I've been trying to make a real effort this year to, take just a few minutes, well, about 15 minutes every day to do sort of positive movement in the morning, tiny bit of yoga, tiny bit of exercise, because my day doesn't lend for an hour. Like if I committed to an hour, that habit would be broken within about 2 days. So I think it's about our lifestyle and what fits in. But I must admit, I'm going to challenge you on this.
Oh,
When
must
I,
you?
yes. So when we start habits which we know are good for us, but they feel like a bit of a drag, because that happens, like take me with this exercise. Now my reward is I get 15 minutes every morning. I, I attach it to another habit, which is something that you, I think, said, and I've heard this somewhere else. So I'll get
Habit
up, I'll
stacking. Yeah.
habit stacking. I love habit stacking. So every morning I make this hot lemon and Himalayan salt drink for
Right.
me. And then I boil the kettle, and then while the kettle's boiling, I go and set my mat up.
Great.
So there's a real kind of system. Kettle goes on, mat goes out. I come back, I make the drink. I know that the water will be the perfect temperature after the 15-minute thing I'm doing. And now there is a reward. But to start with, I
Yeah.
didn't feel there was a reward. I was exhausted. So explain that. Like what I obviously had the intention, I wanted to start this. The reward system was not in sight. I mean, obviously, a healthier mind, body, and soul, essentially, but people don't always see the rewards. So, is it that the reward is attached subconsciously? Like, how does that work?
Well, I think it's conscious at first and then it becomes subconscious.
Right.
But the other part that I didn't talk about was, and this is personal experience and what I've researched. So, in your example there, when you started out that habit, and the habit stacking means that you put an existing habit on top of, you piggybacked it onto something you already do and enjoy. You enjoy your hot lemon every morning, don't you? And that's important. If we do something we enjoy, we're more likely to keep it going. Now, your exercise habit, I presume, is something you didn't or don't enjoy that much. Is that right?
Well, it's weird because both the hot lemon and the exercise, the first few days, I didn't enjoy. I just knew they were good for me. And now I do love them. Yes.
Okay, so I think there's like a curve you go through. So
Mm,
if I decide I want to go running, right, on the couch to 5K, the first time I go out and it absolutely kills me. And I hate that, and I think, well, the only reward I can think of is that I know this is doing me good somehow. Okay. But I'm not enjoying it at all. Because part of the reward is the fact that you enjoy the habit that you're doing. But if you're not enjoying it, that makes it difficult to keep going. So, in a sense, what you have to do, there's this kind of disappointment that you get. You expect the benefit to come quite quickly, and then it
mm.
doesn't come. Okay. That's when you have to keep going. And then when you keep going, you realize that actually this is doing me good. And how long do you say you do this for?
Well, it's probably about 15 minutes on average, sometimes a little more if I've got time, but I would say 15 minutes at push.
And why is it 15 minutes?
Well, I don't want to make this all about me, but
It's always all about you.
well, actually, that brings me on to my habit. Do you know why I do it? Is I was talking to a counselor and it's become really apparent that people in general find it really difficult to prioritize themselves.
Okay.
So actually, my habit building came from just actually wanting to have time for myself.
Right.
I do a lot of writing, which is stationary, so I wanted it to be something different. And I do always make a hot drink in the morning. I do like hot lemon. So that was my first thing at the beginning of the year. I went back to that. But it was just putting that mat down. I knew when I shut those doors, that was my protected time. So it didn't really matter what happened in it. It was almost about just prioritizing a tiny bit of space before the day goes to beep, that I had this time for me.
And
That was
that's,
how,
I get it.
yeah.
So that the great thing about that is you've got two potential rewards coming out of that. One is that it's part of your protected time. And the other one
Mm,
is that eventually just doing the exercise will become easier the more you do it. And you'll get a reward from feeling fitter and healthier. Okay. And
yeah.
and so that kind of feeds in on itself, doesn't it? Because, well, I know it's making me fitter and healthier, and it's becoming easier, so I don't hate it as much. Therefore, I'm much more likely to do it. So you've got a really good kind of system set up there, a good reward system. The difficulty comes when it doesn't get any easier or you just hate it. But I think the solution that you decided on there was perfect because, for example, and I'm quoting now Atomic Habits by James Clear. He wrote this best-selling book on Amazon about habits, and a lot of this was about the habit cycle and how to hack the habit cycle so that you enjoy what you do and you get reward for what you do, because that's what matters. And he talks about a writer that wanted to get into a writing habit, and he wasn't enjoying it at first because he was forcing himself to write. And what he did was he put on his headphones when he went on his computer, and he played some really nice music that he liked, and he associated that with the writing. So because he was listening to the music that he liked, he linked it in with the writing, and he did the writing as part of it and started to enjoy it. So much so that he found he was putting on his headphones, starting to write, and he'd forgotten to put the music on. He just linked the two things together. So what actually happened was the writing in itself became its own intrinsic habit. So you've done a really smart thing there. And also because it's 15 minutes, it's not like an hour in the gym, which is, a lot of people do an hour in the gym, and I'm no physical training expert, but from what I hear, you can just spend too long doing something that doesn't do you an awful lot of benefit. But, so small, if you do things in small bites, you're much more likely to want to repeat them because, as you said, you are time pressured and you don't have a lot of time. So
Mm.
I hope that answers the question.
Well, it does. Well, I think it's really important for people that are listening that might want to build a habit and they feel time is a pressure. Because I think the thing is for me, and most certainly probably others at times, time is what becomes the barrier, time and energy. But if we don't make the time, we don't have the energy, and then we don't have the good sleep, and then we can't form the habit. But for me, everything kind of comes back to time. I feel like it's hugely important, the value we get out of time with others, the time generally. And it's the small things. So I would say to start a habit, if it feels unmanageable, literally 5 minutes is all you should really do. And I went to that. I think I've probably mentioned it a few episodes back because I'm slightly obsessed with this guy's work. But that Dr. Chatterjee's talk, and he did the 5 minute thing, and he said how
Yeah.
important it is. 5 minutes. It's if you consistently do 5 minutes all year, it's way better than someone going once or twice hardcore every week and then after 3 months giving up altogether.
Yeah.
And the small changes are just fundamental. So the only way I've ever been able to build habits is by doing them in tiny pieces and taking my time with it and just really making them important, I would say.
Yeah. I would agree. And James Clear talks about the 2 minute rule. So, and he does this because actually the enemy is not time, because it's the willpower or the motivation and the fact that you're not getting the reward for it. That's what stops you doing it. So if you there's a critical pinch point when you're about to embark upon a habit, and it's usually around. So if it's going to do an exercise class, it's the tying up your shoelaces on your running shoes or something, or on your training shoes. That's the critical point. Once you've done that, the rest of it follows. So he said, if you do something for 2 minutes, it's ridiculous to say go to the gym for 2 minutes or read a book for 2 minutes or play the guitar for 2 minutes, because once you're into it, you actually think, well, 2 minutes is such a short amount of time. You keep going. You just keep on going. And that's how you build it, by just starting small like that, in these small little bites. So and I think that's just quite a clever way of fooling your brain, tricking your brain into getting you to do it. So it's only for 2 minutes. It's as if you're just trying to, coax someone to do something that they don't want to do. It's only for 2 minutes. Come on. And then once you get into it, then you really like doing it. Or you find it's not as painful as you thought it was. So and so therefore, if you said you were going to do something for 5 minutes or 2 minutes and you ended up doing it for 15 minutes, half an hour, time wasn't the problem, was it? Do you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. So you're saying my theory around time is not actually the problem. It usually sits at the motivation point.
Yeah, I think time is a lazy excuse. No offense to you, but it's what people say all the time. I don't have the time, but they do. It's just that they don't prioritize their time. We have loads of time.
Mm.
We just
No, I do.
waste a lot of it.
I
Now, I know there are some people who have, they're holding down 2, 3 jobs, they're looking after 3 kids and sick parent. I know, of course, there are people who are run off their feet, but it's not time it's the enemy. It's their ability to prioritize that thing and choose to do that thing that gives them a reward because they don't think the reward's in it or the effort's too great.
Yeah, no, I do agree with what you're saying because going right back to the beginning of where I started with my own able to stick to this, when I was speaking to the counselor and we were having a conversation about some different things, it was about prioritizing myself because it's where we place our energy in that time, and time is so important. But I think I'm definitely guilty of being one of those people that have said, I just haven't got the time. I haven't got the time to do it. I don't know how I'm going to fit this in. But I know what you mean. It's prioritizing what's important. So for anybody then listening to this episode who's probably sat in a position where they've said those words out loud, I just haven't got the time for X. Can you just give us 3 tips of how people can start small and, just make a change, make a tiny habit, starting right now? What would your 3 quick tips that feel manageable for those people that don't think they've got time? Because we know they have, but it's quite an adjustment, isn't it, to leap into it. So over to you, Alan.
Yeah, sure. I would say off the top of my head, top 3 things are one thing we already mentioned. In fact, we mentioned 2 of them. In fact, we mentioned all of them, but we'll just summarize. So the 2 minute, 5 minute rule, whatever it is, that's the way to start. Because if you do think time is your enemy, I don't think it is, but if you believe that, then there must be some element of truth in it. But to get past that, just start with the 2 minute, 5 minute, and then you start to realize that I can make a little bit of time for this, and then I can make a little bit more time for it. Once you start getting the rewards for it, that's one. The second one is do something you like doing. So if you found that you like your exercise routine, and I found an exercise routine that I like, which is why I'm still doing it 3 years later. And I've been through lots of them and hated them and then given them up. And I do something I actually like doing. And it's not just the reward after it of feeling better and healthier. It's actually, I actually like going through the
Mm,
process of it. And then the final one is just to, as we said, that there is this disappointment kind of trough that you can fall into. I'm not getting the benefit of this, or if it's the guitar playing, you think you've got this vision of wanting to play a piece, and the first time you play it, it sounds awful. Expect disappointment. None of us are perfect. If you're not a professional musician, it's not going to be great from the outset. Expect a few roadblocks. That's part of learning. Um, and just kind of be with it. The other thing I was going to say was the thing we mentioned about the habit stacking is really important. So if you're already doing something, piggyback on that, or try and make something that doesn't seem so pleasant more pleasant. Like the example of the writer who was writing with the music that he liked and just made it, a cozy experience. And I do that myself, as well. I use that example myself. So hope that
yeah,
helps.
it does. It makes a big difference. In fact, without my upbeat playlist, I wouldn't be moving anywhere in the mornings.
Well, there you go. It does help, doesn't it? It makes it
Yeah,
fun,
it
um,
does.
as well as motivated. The other thing, I mean, I wanted to say was these things are all unconscious, and we know that mindfulness makes the unconscious conscious because we're aware. We know we've talked about this a lot, and we probably talk about it in every episode we do. We have habitual thoughts, so something happens to us, and then we go off on a pattern on a railway line that's predetermined by us. That's the way we think about a certain thing. Um, Using mindfulness, you can understand what that railway track looks like and whether you want to shift the points onto another track because you're making the unconscious conscious and you're suddenly aware of what your thought patterns are, your behavior patterns, and you choose your reaction to that. That's how you can break bad habits and then reform new ones.
Yeah, because I suppose then you're just aware of your existing habits that have formed over so long that don't really need to be there. And that's where you can reprioritize your time to do these lovely things. Well, thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
No, I enjoyed that. And I think it's really important for us to get to where we want to be to have these things, isn't it?
It is that we are driven by our habits, way more than I guess most of us would think, because we're driven by our subconscious, and that's where the habits come from. They're buried in the subconscious or the unconscious.
Well, that brings us to nearly our final episode is the next one of this series.
There you go. We're getting through these, and
Yeah.
we hope you're enjoying them and finding some use from them. And always, as ever, feel free to drop a comment to us and let us know how you're using these and how you're
Yeah, and what
enjoying them.
your habits are.
Yes, what your listening habits are. And then we can tap into that and make it enjoyable for you.
I know, and what habit you might make. That would be nice.
Yes. Want to hear
Well,
success stories, don't we?
yes, we do.
There you
That's what
go.
makes the world go round,
It
sharing our
is.
experiences. So we'll be back for our final episode and potentially a series 4. So stay with us.
Bye for now.